It is quite common in my clinic to see patients who, on the surface, seem to be doing everything right. They eat their vegetables, they stay active, yet they come to me feeling a profound sense of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. They describe a persistent gray fog over their mood, a loss of physical strength, and a general lack of drive that they can't quite put their finger on. Often, they feel like a shadow of their former selves, watching their muscle tones soften and their mental sharpness slip away. When we sit down and look at the underlying biology, we often find that the body's internal signaling system, specifically the production of testosterone, has slowed down. While we often think of this as just a male issue, I always remind my patients that this hormone is vital for everyone. In my years of practice, I've seen how small, silent shifts in our daily habits can either protect this vital energy or let it drain away without us even noticing. When we talk about testosterone, I want you to picture it not just as a chemical, but as a primary messenger that tells your body to build, to repair, and to stay alert. In men, this is largely produced in the testes, and in women, it comes from the ovaries, with both genders also relying on the adrenal glands located just above the kidneys. It is a common misconception that the body just pumps this out at a steady, unchanging rate, like a faucet left running. In reality, your body produces hormones in specific waves and cycles. There are windows of opportunity where the biological machinery is primed to manufacture these messengers. If we don't support these windows, or if we actively do things that interrupt the factory floor, our levels drop. This isn't like a machine breaking down. It's more like a delicate garden where the growth slows because the environment isn't quite right. One of the most significant invisible factors I see in the clinic is the impact of sleep. We live in a world where staying up late for work or scrolling through a screen is seen as normal, but your endocrine system, the part of you that manages hormones, doesn't see it that way. Clinical studies have shown something quite striking. When healthy individuals are deprived of adequate sleep, their testosterone levels plummet significantly in a very short amount of time. This happens because the most intense production of this hormone occurs during a specific stage called REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep. This is the time when you are dreaming deeply. If you cut your sleep short, you aren't just losing rest. You are literally cutting off the supply chain for your body's vital vitality. In my experience, even a few nights of poor rest can make a man or woman feel years older than they actually are because those internal levels haven't had the chance to reset. I often tell my patients that many things that happen inside the body start quietly at a cellular level long before you feel a single ache or pain. You might just feel a bit more tired than usual or notice that you're gaining weight around the midsection despite not changing your diet. This is the invisible stage where your blood flow and hormone synthesis are beginning to shift. If we ignore these quiet signals, they eventually turn into louder problems like depression or muscle loss. It's important to understand that everything in your body is connected. A lack of sleep doesn't just make you tired, it changes how your body processes fats, how it manages stress, and how it maintains its structural integrity. Now, let's talk about something that often surprises people in my office. For years, we've been told that fat and cholesterol are the enemies of health. However, as a doctor, I have to look at the raw materials the body needs. If you were to look at the chemical structure of testosterone, the actual blueprint of the molecule, you would see that it is built from a base of cholesterol. Yes, that scary word. Without healthy fats in your diet, your body simply does not have the bricks and mortar it needs to build testosterone or estrogen. I see many people who go on extreme low fat diets thinking they are being healthy, only to find their energy and hormonal health disappearing. In women, this can even lead to the body shutting down the reproductive cycle entirely as a protective measure because the body senses there aren't enough resources to sustain life. This is why I always emphasize the importance of high quality natural fats. We aren't talking about processed junk food, but rather the life sustaining fats found in things like extra virgin olive oil, avocados, and even the natural fats found in responsibly sourced meats. These saturated and monounsaturated fats are essential for the synthesis of your hormones. In the 1990s, there was a huge movement toward fat free everything, and I believe we are still seeing the health fallout from that era today. By incorporating these healthy fats back into your daily routine, you are essentially giving your internal factory the raw materials it has been starving for. It takes almost no extra time to make the shift. It's just a matter of choosing the avocado over the fat free processed snack. While we've discussed the physical building blocks like healthy fats and sleep, there is another internal factor that I see affecting patients every single day in my practice. It's something far more subtle, but incredibly powerful, the relationship between different hormones. You see, our bodies operate on a delicate balance of checks and balances. In the medical world, we have specialists called endocrinologists who spend their entire careers studying these connections because they are so complex. One concept I often explain to my patients is the idea of an antagonist, a hormone that essentially works against another. In the case of your vitality and testosterone, the primary antagonist is a hormone you've likely heard of, cortisol. Cortisol is often labeled as the stress hormone, and while it has a bit of a bad reputation on social media lately, I want to clarify its role from a clinical perspective. In my years of practice, I've had to explain that cortisol isn't evil. In fact, it is essential for life. It follows what we call a circadian rhythm, meaning its levels rise and fall naturally throughout the day. Under normal circumstances, your cortisol should be at its highest in the morning. This is what gives you that natural spark to get out of bed and face the day. Without it, we would all stay pinned to our pillows, unable to find the energy to move. However, the problem arises when this hormone stays elevated for too long due to the pressures of modern life. When your body is under constant chronic stress, it enters a fight or flight mode. During this time, the body prioritizes immediate survival over long term maintenance. It reasons that if you are running from a metaphorical lion, you don't need to worry about building muscle or maintaining reproductive health at that exact moment. As a result, when cortisol goes up and stays up, your testosterone production is naturally pushed down. This is a biological trade off. I see this pattern regularly. A patient comes in feeling frozen, unable to find the motivation to exercise or even enjoy their hobbies. They feel depressed and physically weak, and it's often because their system is flooded with stress signals that are drowning out their growth hormones. In my clinic, I try to offer a perspective on stress management that is a bit different from the generic advice you usually hear. I like to use a simple psychological model to help my patients understand what is happening. Think of a stressor. It could be a difficult exam, a breakup, a demanding boss, or even a parking ticket. On its own, that event is actually neutral. What creates the physical stress response in your body is your valuation of that event. We typically go through two internal assessments. First, we ask, is this situation dangerous? And second, we ask, do I have the resources to handle it? Stress is born in the gap between the perceived danger and our perceived ability to cope. I've noticed that in our modern society, we've become much more sensitive to small stressors. I've had moments myself, especially during my rigorous medical studies, where I felt like one exam was a life or death situation. My heart would race, my palms would sweat, and my cortisol would skyrocket. But when I stepped back and realized that I had passed hundreds of exams before, the danger decreased and my stress levels followed. By simply changing how you evaluate a situation, you can actually signal your brain to stop the flood of cortisol, which in turn allows your testosterone levels to begin recovering. This isn't about being tough, it's about being smart with your biology. It's a small mental habit that requires no special equipment or extra time, but the ripple effects on your hormonal health are profound. When you lower that chronic stress, you stop the downward spiral where low testosterone leads to less activity, which leads to more stress, and so on. Instead, you start an upward trend. You'll find that as you manage your internal reactions, your body feels more permitted to invest in itself, again, building that muscle, clearing that mental fog, and restoring that drive that makes life feel vibrant. Moving beyond the internal world of thoughts and stress, I want to share some observations from the clinical literature and my own practice regarding simple, everyday substances that can have a surprising impact on your hormonal health. Sometimes the most effective tools are things we already have in our kitchens, though we might not be using them in the right way to support our biology. For instance, many of my patients are surprised to learn that caffeine can play a role in this process. Now, I'm not talking about drinking liters of sugary energy drinks, but rather the strategic use of a moderate amount of caffeine. Research indicates that there is a fascinating connection between caffeine and physical performance. Clinical studies have shown that when individuals consume a bit of caffeine before a strength training session, they often experience a higher surge of testosterone following that workout compared to those who don't. It's likely an indirect effect. The caffeine allows you to perform better, to push a bit harder, and to give more gas during your training. It is that increased physical performance, the actual work your muscles are doing, that signals the body to boost its hormone production. It's a wonderful example of how a small, simple habit can leverage your body's natural systems to produce better results without any extra cost. Another fascinating area of study involves an enzyme we all have in our bodies called aromatase. In my years of practice, I've had to explain this invisible process to many men who are frustrated by physical changes they don't understand. You see, the body has a way of taking what it has already built and changing it. Aromatase is an enzyme that takes the testosterone you've worked hard to produce and converts it into estrogen. While every man needs some estrogen, if this enzyme is too active, it can lead to a state where you feel less like yourself. You might notice increased body fat, a loss of libido, and a drop in mental drive. This is where the natural world offers us some interesting support. There is a compound called resveratrol, which is found in the skins of grapes and consequently in red wine. This substance has been shown to act as a natural inhibitor of that aromatase enzyme. Now, as a doctor, I have to be very clear here. I am not prescribing red wine as a health tonic. While the grapes themselves are full of beneficial compounds, the negative effects of the alcohol usually far outweigh the benefits of the resveratrol. In clinical trials, researchers often use concentrated supplements because you would have to drink an unhealthy amount of wine to get a therapeutic dose. However, there is a practical, everyday lesson here. Instead of reaching for processed sweets or chocolate when you have a craving, choosing a bowl of fresh grapes is a simple way to support your body. It's about building a healthy relationship with your food. When you look at a grape and know it contains resveratrol for your hormones, or an apple and know its pectin supports your gut, you begin to see food as medicine rather than just fuel. In my clinic, I find that patients who develop this appreciation for the micronutrition in their diet tend to have much better long term health outcomes. It's important to remember that these natural strategies are meant to support a healthy body. If there is a significant clinical deficiency, for instance, if a young person isn't reaching developmental milestones, or if a patient is suffering from severe clinical depression due to low levels, then medical intervention may be necessary. I always keep my patients informed that while we strive for natural balance, modern medicine has tools for when the body's systems need more direct help. But for the vast majority of us, focusing on these small natural helpers can create a massive lever for our health. It's a matter of making these tiny corrections today so that the tissue and cellular changes happening inside you stay on the right track for years to come. In my clinical practice, when we discuss the invisible ways our bodies manage hormones, I often have to touch on a subject that requires a bit of gentle honesty. We need to talk about where that aromatase enzyme we mentioned earlier actually lives. It is well documented that a significant amount of this enzyme is found within our body fat. This creates a challenging biological loop. The more excess body fat a person carries, the more aromatase they have. This means that a man with high levels of body fat is essentially carrying around a factory that constantly converts his testosterone into estrogen. I see this pattern often, and it can lead to what we call feminization in a biological sense. It isn't just about appearance, it's about how you feel and how your body functions. When estrogen levels become too high in a man, it can lead to the demineralization of bones, a significant drop in physical drive, and even a loss of mental clarity. You might lose that feeling of dominance or confidence that usually follows a job well done or a hard workout. Furthermore, this hormonal shift makes it harder to maintain muscle mass. In my years of experience, I've seen that muscle is about much more than just looking good at the gym. For older patients, muscle is a lifesaver. It protects the skeleton and prevents the falls that are a leading cause of health complications as we age. This is why I always emphasize weight management as a pillar of hormonal health. It isn't about fitting into a specific clothing size for the sake of vanity. It's about reducing the biological noise created by excess fat so your hormones can find their natural balance. In my clinic, I often suggest small, sustainable changes like focusing on fiber and micronutrients rather than strict punishing protocols. These small adjustments to your daily habits are things anyone can start today, and they require no extra money or special equipment. It is simply about giving your body the environment it needs to thrive beyond what we eat or how we sleep. There is a fascinating connection between our physical presence and our internal chemistry that I find absolutely remarkable. I often ask my patients, does your mood change your posture, or does your posture change your mood? It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, but clinical experiments have yielded some very intriguing results regarding something called power posing. The idea is that taking a wide, open stance, sometimes called a high power pose, can actually send signals back to your brain about your status and safety. In some initial studies, researchers found that holding a powerful, confident posture for just a short period could actually lower cortisol levels and provide a gentle boost to testosterone. It's as if by acting powerful, you are tricking your brain into releasing the chemicals associated with that state. Now, as a doctor who values scientific integrity, I must mention that when other researchers tried to replicate these exact hormonal changes in later studies, the results were inconsistent. This is how science works. We are always learning and refining our understanding. However, even if the direct hormonal boost is still being debated in the lab, the real world effects remain very compelling. I've seen this work in my own life and with my patients. Even if we can't definitively prove a massive spike in testosterone, every time you stand tall, we can see the change in how people perform in high stress situations like job interviews or public speaking. When you take up space and hold your head high, you feel different, and more importantly, the world perceives you differently. It costs nothing to try. Before you head into a difficult meeting or a challenging day, take a moment to stand in a position of strength, whether it's a double biceps pose in private or simply pulling your shoulders back. You are using your body to influence your mind. It's a simple, natural way to overpower the stress of the moment and reclaim your sense of self. As we bring these pieces together, I want to emphasize that your journey toward hormonal balance is not about achieving a perfect alpha status or chasing a number on a lab report. In my clinic, I always remind patients that while testosterone is a vital engine for growth, energy, and mental sharpness, balance is the ultimate goal. Just as too little can leave you feeling gray and depleted, an excessive amount, often sought through artificial means, can bring its own set of complications, such as increased aggression or health risks that we want to avoid. The beauty of the natural methods we've discussed today is that your body is incredibly smart. It knows how to find its own sweet spot when you provide the right environment. Throughout my years of practice, I have seen that the most profound changes don't come from a single miracle pill, but from the cumulative effect of these small, quiet choices. When you choose to prioritize that extra hour of REM sleep, you are choosing to let your internal factory run at full capacity. When you reach for healthy fats like avocado or olive oil, you are providing the literal bricks and mortar for your cells. And when you manage your stress by changing how you evaluate the world around you, you are effectively turning off the emergency sirens of cortisol that drown out your natural vitality. These are simple habits that anyone can start today, right now, without spending a penny or needing a gym membership. I know that the world of health advice can feel overwhelming and loud, which is why I wanted to take this time to explain the quiet biology happening under your skin. Whether you are a man looking to regain your drive or a woman looking to support your overall energy and bone health, these principles of sleep, nutrition, and stress management are universal. I've shared these insights with you because in the short time we usually have during clinic appointments, it's rare to be able to dive deep into why these things matter. My hope is that by understanding the why, you feel empowered to take charge of your own well being. It has been a pleasure sharing these observations from my clinical experience with you today. Remember, your body isn't a machine that needs to be forced, it's a living system that needs to be supported. Start with one small change, perhaps standing a little taller before your next big task or choosing a healthier snack, and watch how your body responds. I am confident that as you begin to work with your biology instead of against it, you will start to feel that fog lift and that natural strength return. If this video has been useful to you, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Help me reach 50,000 subscribers so that more people can receive this information.